All right, I'm gone live now. Um, hello. Okay, is my mic working? My mic's working. All right, I am organized right now. Let's see what I got. Okay, so today's page. This is the second page that we've done this week. That's also a zine. The first one was yesterday's. Hold on, I'm looking for it. I just said I was organized. Yesterday's was the doodling page, and today's the earthquake party page. And so the fun thing about both of them is that they operate as one-page stories, same as anything else does. But I've also got the ability for them to be in a fold-up zine book. So, you know, double whammy. Yeah. The whole idea is that to do these as zines, but they also work as one-page stories. It's hard to present a zine where half of the page is upside down, half the story is upside down, and say, here's the thing I did for today, because you intend on putting it out as a zine. So it's important to do it as the one-page format as well. So the original art is no different than the zine. Well, except for in this case, it's upside down. But yeah, so there's no difference here. It just, I get to flip it, and but when I do the text on this thing, I do the text on the one layer, and then I invert the image 180 degrees. And because of how Photoshop works, because I'm doing the whole image at once, the whole thing flips, including the text. So it's like, oh, that's such a bonus. That makes things so much easier. So yeah, so there we go. So we've got the two zines books this week, which I think puts me at 15. I think I'm at 15 now, or 14, something like that. I don't know. I've done a bunch, and they're fun. They're really fun to do, and they're no different time-wise to do than a one-page story. If anything, in the process of doing them, you've got two outcomes in that one-page format. So, that's great. Just a second here. I'm setting up my other camera. Okay, so that's what we've done. We've done the two zine pages this week, and I can do another one today if we feel like it. Hold on. Ooh, there we go. We're all better. Yeah, that's the crazy miking that kicks in all of a sudden with this silly thing. How you doing, Salty? Good to see you. Hello yourself. Hello. So yeah, so these are some fun pages that we've done, and earthquake party. Silly Jello joke. Anyways, yeah. So this was fun. It was fun to do all these characters, in one sort of composition, and then, but of course, being entirely understanding of the fact that it's quadrants, and that I'm going to have each of them in these 8 equal part panels. But the earthquake party one, which is the bottom left corner and center, is the only 2-page spread in the whole thing. Everything else is sort of like it stands on its own, even though it's one continuous image. So good fun. Yeah, I enjoyed doing these two things this week. And as far as it goes for the original art, give me a second here. As far as it goes for the original, I've got, so here's the one, it's doodling. This is the doodling page. And then here is our jelly plate surface whatchamacallit, one-page zine story. Boy, my brain just went right there. Just I'm having a nap. Okay, sorry, just checking my camera. Okay, so Dun, dun, dun. A couple more down the day. Anyway, so we've got I've got a whole bunch of materials and stuff like that in front of me, including I've got. I realize you realize when you have things in your studio that you don't do anything with, and maybe I should try to do something with these. These studio marker sets, when they came out, they included silver and a gold, and I've never used them, and so I've got. I think I have in the past, but some time ago. So I thought I might do our page today where we incorporate some of those elements into our story. Now, I also think that with that, I'm going to get a little bit crazy with some ink overwash and stuff like that. And I've got some tin foil here as well. So we'll see. We'll see how it goes. Because sometimes you got to get crazy. But yeah, we'll work on today's page. I'm looking for where I put the suggestion from Linda for today. It's a knight fixing his armor, riding a locomotive train. I'm trying to think. I think that's what it was. So if it's wrong, by the time I get going, hopefully Linda will correct me. So yeah, I'll write it down on a piece of paper. I keep all the scraps of paper kicking around in the studio because I'm going to be making paper soon. And so I'll take people through that. Yeah, so it's, what did I say it was? A knight fixes his armor. I think that's what it is. And rides locomotive train. And so that's Linda R. that suggested that. So we're going to give that a shot today. Trains are fun. Trains are fun. So, yeah, there's a whole bunch of different approaches to take to this. I think I'm going to just draw straight on with a studio pen, and we'll start adding elements to it. And that way, I'm not going to be too precious about things. I'm not going to overthink or overspend time on mistakes, or do I gotta worry about erasing this, or forget it. We're just gonna draw straight on and go with it. So that's gonna be fun in the sun. Hi Susanna, how you doing? So yeah, so we've got our pages posted for today, and here we go. I've got a bunch of errands to run this afternoon, as well as get my ears lifted. It's what, I'm getting my hair cut. So we call it getting my ears lifted. Doesn't make any sense to anyone, apparently. So, all right. So we've got, we're going to start off by putting our knight on there, and then we'll get going from there. Or do I introduce him riding his locomotive? Because that is funny. Anyway, we'll see. So I can do this in a couple different ways. I can do this as a, we can divide this up and do this as a zine as well. I'm good with that. That sounds like some fun, but I want to try some different things if that's the approach. So first off, I'll fold it up, and then we'll get going. The challenge of certain materials that if you use those as your surface to work on, they don't fold well. Like some things, like the craft paper, really crinkles, right? And this is what I mean by the crinkling. Sometimes with cardstock, it's not clean and pretty and perfect and beautiful, which is important to say. But doesn't matter. I'm gonna mess it up anyways. Gonna big old pile of silly business all over this here. One more fold, and and we're off. So with this page, one of the things I thought I might try is with the knight's armor, I might, because he's riding a locomotive, I might make like a locomotive grill at the front of his mask. That's literally the only thing I've come up with so far on this whole page, but we'll see. So there we go. We got our page separated out, and I'm going to start right here for our cover image, and there's our suggestion at the top. For those of you that have really good eyes, that's not me. Yeah, so let's do it. So like I said, I'm going to try to incorporate some foil paper and metallic marker and ink wash and ink splash and stuff like that, and make a right proper mess here. So we're going to make a right proper mess. All right, so yeah, here we go. Let's first panel, we're going to put our little title in here. So what I thought might be, interesting anyways, is to just, like I've done before in previous pages, where I just put the images down and then we worry about fitting the text, fitting the dialogue over top of it. Your art is serviceable, right? It needs to be serviceable to your storytelling. So I don't want to wreck it. I don't want to make any mess or have it get covered up or whatever else. Let go of that. And the reason I say let go of that is because it's not going to serve the story. The art is just there to serve the story. And to work in conjunction with the text. And if we can't figure that out, then we're hard pressed for our storytelling, because the visual and textual elements here work in a fusion with one another. So I thought I'd just be having a little bit of fun and putting in some of the image first and foremost with the silver, and then we'll see if we can get the black to work over top, or I might have to change my whole plan, because the black won't make a mark over top. We got to figure out a different tool to use. So I'm putting in I'm drawing our knight first and foremost, and I'm thinking about some of the elements from a locomotive train. So he's got to have, a metal plate with the number of the train on it. He's got to have, I think that's an important part of it. There's a part of me that wants to put a smokestack at the top of his head, but it didn't really leave enough room for that. So we'll see how we can fit that in. But then also I want to have a big circular light on him as well, just because these are the sort of things that make me laugh. And at the end of the day, as we're working on whatever we're working on, we have to be enjoying ourselves in the process, or it's gonna be boring. So I'm just putting down some shapes, just cutting some shapes in for our guy. And then as we come back in with the black, then we'll start cutting things back in. But I just want to get our knight in first and foremost. It's interesting. There's this kind of resurgence in interest in armor now, because people have been watching all of these different programs that have all these characters wearing all these suits of armor. It makes it more conducive to people too. There we go. We zoomed in a little bit. I'm going to move this over just a touch there so you can see where we're at, where it's at. Now get my head out of the way. So if people got little insights or thoughts that they want to try to include in today's page, give me a shout. Figure out. Let's see if there's some fun stuff that we can do. So I'm going to put the grill in place like on a train at the front. I just thought that would be fun. the silly little things count, right? What are the things that we think about, that we consider in our storytelling process, that, you know, distinctly separate than what others might consider about the same thing? What is it that makes your thought process original? There's already a wealth of material out there. There's already a wealth of stories out in the wild right now. We live in an age where people have more accommodation to be able to pursue creative endeavors like storytelling and things like that. So if you're going to do it, you want to figure out, how do you do it with your own voice? How do you do it so that it's authentic and unique? And even if you're doing like an homage to something, or you're doing some sort of daguerreotype based on some previous thing that you enjoy, how do you do it so that it sounds as though, so it's being spoken by your voice? The narration and all the storytelling elements are yours, right? How do you do your version of a spider? You do. What would you have to say with that type of character? And so for those that are hard pressed for an idea to start things off with, I think that's a good way to get going, is to just sort of let yourself give that a try, right? How can I like Tintin, but what kind of adventure could I tell with a Tintin type character? If people say, oh, just do your own thing, I'm going to throw a little additional caveat here. Authentic creation, or theories, or I have a unique and brand new original thing, we live in a world where people use that a lot, and they're really hard pressed to be credibly honest about it, because there are so many things that, while it might be your own variation on a form, there's so many things that precede, the stuff that we dream up, like Frankenstein. Frankenstein's subtitle was The Modern Prometheus. Now, Frankenstein is not Prometheus, but the notion of Frankenstein, about a person bringing life, to bringing life into this world, and having real trouble come from that. That's how it relates in that regard to the modern Prometheus, is because while the doctor has created this creature is going to get him into no ends of grief. So, whereas most people would think that modern Prometheus is talking about the monster's perspective, it's not. The whole thing is about the doctor's perspective, Dr. Frankenstein. The monster, as he calls it, is not Frankenstein. That's the Frankenstein's monster. So that's not brand new. But even things like Jekyll and Hyde. Well, the idea of feral people, the idea of people who are on the fringes of society, and suffering from whatever ailment that, werewolf lycanthropy or whatever it might be, that is keen and interesting in society at the time. Jekyll and Hyde taps into that. It's about a person wanting to remove those baser natures of how man behaves from time to time. And if you look at the Incredible Hulk, the baser nature of Bruce Banner kicking out the scientist, the same as Jekyll, and once he gets gamma radiated, then suddenly he becomes this rampaging brute, right? The difference with that, of course, Jekyll and Hyde, is that Hyde is actually smaller than Jekyll. Well, at least at first. So, whereas the Hulk is this, Hulk, gargantuan thing that likes to smash. Well, it's actually just similar in that regard to Frankenstein, that it's in a state of confusion, brought into the world and not explained, on any level about this is the world. It's just a monster being chased, and so it lashes out. Like, all of these things are interesting, but it's not to say that they're not interesting and individual creative endeavors. I'm just saying that all of these things are affected by stuff that comes before them. So don't feel like you can't refer to pre-existing materials and whatever your creative exploration is, that you can't draw upon those and the inspiration that they provide for you in whatever your project is that you're working on, whatever your engagement may well be at the time, because they might help you with some of those questions you're trying to possibly answer in your story. Why is he chasing the monster? Why is he, so hell-bent on destroying this creature that he's brought into existence? Well, we know over the course of the story, but when the writer is creating that, Mary Shelley, when she's creating that, she's asking herself these questions. Why is he being hunted? How has this all come about? And so sometimes writers will write from the back end, try to figure out answers to things along the way. There's a whole bunch of different processes for folks. So here's our knight coming together. I've given him some attributes that are similar to him wearing a suit of armor that's reminiscent to a locomotive train, because he's going to ride on a locomotive train. That's what we're going to have him do. His grand majestic steed. So I'm not going to fill this in yet, but this is going to be, well, I might as well. Who cares? Filling in some areas, some black areas here as well. Really rough looking circle there. And there's its rough looking twin. It's all right. We got through it. Go team, go team, go. Okay. So if people have suggestions or ideas that they want to put into this character as we're doing it, you feel free to shout them out. We'll see what we can do. So there's his. I've got a white pen here. I'm going to clean up my circle a little bit. Because that sort of irritates me. There we are. That's better. Does anybody have an idea for what we can use as the number of the train placard that he's wearing? So that'll be an important part of everything. I'm trying to let some of the marks that I've already previously put down just stand alone and represent things where I really don't have to draw them through. One of the nice benefits of just allowing yourself to scribble and play with things is that, you can remain open to opportunities in your creative process. So we've got his arm here. I'll put another piece of gray in there in a second, but let's get under his suit of armor here. That head is gigantic. That makes actually me laugh a little bit, but maybe they were gigantic. I don't know. We're just drawing. Not overthinking, just putting marks down to start. So I'm going to do the same thing on the shoulder. As usual, if anybody's working on stuff that they want to tell others about, please feel free to do so. Sometimes, talking with other creatives about projects that you're working on can help you find some solutions too. problems you're working through in your stories and your compositions and your okay, so here's his other shoulder, and just put some marks through in here. Where are we at? Okay. I'm going to put a lot of black through there as well. So, but before that, we're going to punch him with some of the silver in here. There we go. And then we'll tighten up our lines and our shapes over here. Okay, so here's our knight and locomotive armor coming together now. You can really work quickly into the silver. It's kind of nice. I'm curious as to what the light fastness is here on this. So we'll see. Okay, so we're gonna flip our page over, and we'll get right into drawing our next section, which is going to be the locomotive part of it all. So bear with me just a moment. I'm just going to move everything up. So we got it in frame. There we go. We should be, yep, there we, well, I'll pull back a little bit. There's perfect. Good. And up a little more. Happy days are here again. Okay. So now I've got to draw a locomotive. I think that what might be fun is to, while getting the locomotive down, we want to have, of course, our guy riding it. So, yeah, we'll see what I can figure out here. But I want to have a grill at the front to be reminiscent of his costuming. So, just trying to figure out my... All right, there we go. So I'm going to draw in our locomotive. And I think the question is, where do I have him riding on the top? Because you got smokestacks, right? So I'm really going to exaggerate it. Now, yesterday, I had shown a bunch of shapes that I have, and I talked about utilizing those shapes to help people understand, you know, shadow and light and how objects come together. And I hope that was helpful for people. I haven't heard much back from folks on it, but I hope that people got something from that. You know, here to help. So I'm drawing in the front of the locomotive, and I've got to get the nameplate on it as well. I've done a couple different images with trains in them before. I'll bring one over in just a second, show you. But I drew a piece for a book. Oh, let's see if I can find where it. Yeah, I think. Yeah, it should be here. There we go. So this is a drawing I did. Oh, just an alarm telling me, hey, you, wake up. All right. So this is a drawing that I did. I might have to pull back out again for this. Yeah. There we go. So this is a drawing I did for one book that I worked on. I've done a number of books for other people, but this one is drawn in a black pen, ballpoint pen, and a white pencil on a tan colored construction paper. And so, putting in this very specific type of Indian train, and I've knocked everything over, makes for some creative decision making one has to do. There we go. Which is fine, which is, what you end up doing anyways. You have to do creative decisions one way or another. So there we are. All right. So let's get back to work on this one. And I'll pull back in a little bit more. Here we go. Okay. So we're drawing the front of our big majestic locomotive. So I haven't broken anything down. I'm just sort of going with this pen and seeing what happens. These pens tend to fly through ink really quickly. I don't, they just do. They just sort of, I find they run out in no time flat, and which is challenging because if you don't have enough of them put aside and you're working on something and they're constantly wiping out on you, that's not helping. That's not what you need. So, find out a little bit about the tools that you've got so that while you are utilizing them for your projects, you're not going to have any little surprises there. So here's the top of our train coming in. I'm going to come in with that. So I just want to get it started, but let's start chopping it up with the silver, because we're really playing on our silver being added into this. And clean that up a tiny bit. So if our train is, we're going to bring it a little bit forward here, and then we're going to do the same this way so that we can recede our train back. A little smokestack on the roof. This is our bottom half, the circular part of the front of our train. And see what that gives us. Susanna says, that's interesting. What's interesting? What did I do? What did I do? So I want to get the train started, and now I'm roughing in all of this key little bits of business and information that's going to go throughout our train. But what we really need at the front is that grill system. So that, bing bong, right? I think actually our front of our train would be up here. Yeah, that makes more sense. So, yeah, whatever helps you in your creative process to figure out things as you go along. There's no right or wrong answer to how one does put together their images. Just go with what works for you. So I've got a smokestack. I'm going to do another short over here, and then on the hood of the cabin, or what's it called, wherever the conductor sits, is where I'll have our knight sitting. So I have his knee in here, and his foot in a stirrup, and then we'll have him riding up the top. And I'm going to clean this up a little bit, but you're getting the idea. He's riding the locomotive as he charges into a jousting scenario. So yeah, he's always going to have to fix his armor because he's charging at things with locomotive speed. So we're starting to figure out a little bit of internal logic here on the wherefores and whys of how this works. So I'm putting the first smokestack in. And here we go on the roof of our train. And I need to put that plate on the front there like we have in a suit of armor. So that's rough and tumble, but you know, it's doing the job. I oftentimes, when I do the jams, like to draw with this kind of a setup because it just forces you have to just go for it and get on with things. The challenge I have with when the monthly comic jam, and that's coming up on Monday this week in London, I spend the day in the studio working on XYZ, and so then when you go after you're done in the studio and you gotta go into to draw with others, it's like you sort of have to keep that energy level up. You don't want to just come there and phone it in. It's not very considerate of the others that this is a big opportunity for them to come out and engage in that creative learning. I don't need to try. I've already done this. Yeah, that's not fair. So I try to wake up and get a little rejuvenated before I come out. So I'm putting in our train as we go along, and ruler would be great, but I'm sort of drawing in a kind of organic way, that just feeling the lines out as I go. It's going to be a little sloppy, but that's all right. I'm cool like that if you're cool like that. So now I'm putting in our knight with his armor set. We'll have to put stirrup attached to the side of the front of the train here. We'll have to color these in so it doesn't look like we don't need anybody inside there. We could just pretend it's some sort of sentient train, who knows. There's our front of our train here. There's this metal rod that goes and sits over top. There's our run line. So I'm just, the source image I was using for the train, one of the little thumbnails that I pulled up, that's got already turned off on me. So at this point, because I roughed in the whole thing at the start, I have a general idea. But now I've liberated myself from having to replicate whatever the source imagery might be. By having myself work from the hip, basically, right? Oh, I forgot to put there we go. There's this black. So I'm drawing our knight riding on his train in the background. A little bit of fun there. Side of our engine. And of course I'm going to have to put like it's not just this majestic steed. We're going to have the cool car as well, which runs directly behind the engine, oftentimes attached, right? But depending on the train and the time period, because they figured out, you don't have to just keep reloading, you could have extra coal cars loaded in advance so trains can just pull up to this place and unhook the one they have and hook up the new one, and away we go. So I'm just finding some of those details as we're moving down along the front of the train here. Curving the lines to try to imply that this is circular in shape, right? Right, Chris? So I like working from suggestions that come from folks. It is fun because it makes me have to do things that I may not have considered otherwise, and there's a real joy of that, or a joy in that, I'm sorry, and it's largely because it enables me to think outside of the way my head usually works. And because of that, you'll find little connections, little interesting directions in projects that that may have been left on the floor. Like they may have been something that even if you scribbled it out, you look and go, oh, that's bonkers, and you move on. But when you're objectively chasing something down, yeah, it tends to have you invest a little bit more. It tends to make you consider, in some way, I gotta tell this, story points or notions that you might not have given the time of day. So, like a cowboy night on a train. So I'm going to have to give him his lance as well. So we're just going to put him here. This curly business on the top. And so the lance, I'll put like that. I mean, how is he going to have a lance battle with another person if they're on horseback? Because how's that lance going to reach? That's too much to consider right now, so we're not going to worry about that so much. But there's our knight on the back of his train with his lance. So now it's just a case of finishing off the train. So if you don't want to be too worried about the whole penciling things out, inking things out, putting some value to it, try this method. Try the figuring out an object through its shadow, And of course you can come back in, which I'm going to do, and add in, little aspects of it that you may well have missed before. Oh, there's bound to be some shadow here. There's bound to be some shadow there. And, give yourself that. Allow yourself that leeway so that you're not too caught up in it has to be perfect. It has to be exactly this. Let it go. Just draw. Where are we at? 43 minutes. This is taking me forever. So here's our train coming through. Choo choo, choo choo. Can't forget some of these connections between the wheels. My goodness, what am I doing? That's challenge, right? You're trying to remember what a train looks like and all the parts of it and complicated things. complicated doodads. I need one more wheel. Yeah, definitely need one more wheel back there. Yeah, I'm all right with that. I don't think I gave the gray enough chance to dry before I was just drawing right into it there, so it was a little soft, the page. Forgotten heroes in history. Who knows? Who knows where this story is going to go? I like stuff like that where you're like, hey, you might not have heard about this knight, but he's important. And it's a knight in the 16th century used to ride on a train at horses. Like, that's just bonkers, but it's fun. Okay, so let's draw in the card in behind, some of the connectors, and I'll have to figure out the environment around as well. So sometimes leaving areas out and not filling those in implies more about the shape than we'll fill the rest of it in with our eyes. That's what we do. We look for patterns as human beings. So you don't always have to worry about drawing all of the rest of the front of the train or whatever else it might be, because people that are somebody's going to look at it and go, oh, I know what that is. That's this, and they're right. So thank you, people. So here's our train. I'm going to have to draw the ground. I think we'll put some rocks. Excuse me for the angle, but we'll put some smoke coming out of the top. And so we'll put our little smokestack up here in our shadow. So we're using our light source. And then we'll put some random lights through there. So a random shadow through there. So here's our train in our environment as he's moving through. Now what I need to do is put some of the materials for the jousting. So I think that there's there's going to be a fence, and then here in the background there's going to be boxes that have some faces in the crowd here as they're watching the event, and then we'll put in some values for some trees behind them. So I'm just trying to think about the whole of the image here. There we go. Another tree in here. All right, now we'll just clean that up. So we've got our character through here. Did I make a mistaken mark there? Or what was that intended for? I might have. So here's our trees in the background. And then in front of those we'll have our crowd, our spectators. And we'll put the box that they're all sitting in. And then the shadow from that. We'll fill in our background here with their trees. And we'll put some more just to define this back of the audience a little more clearly. We'll put this next tree in here. So now we know that this is where all the fans are sitting. We've got that in place. And then this is the post system that divides the two lanes for the jousters. So he has to run up along his lane, and then the other one will have to run up along theirs. A couple lines underneath. Okay, so there's our next panel. So we've got a good start on this page for today. So this is our next page that we're working on from the suggestion from Linda of a knight fixes his armor and rides a locomotive train. So yeah, we're gonna have the train serve as a horse, and anytime there's damage to the train, like the steam pot gets lanced or something like that, he's gonna have to, get a blacksmith and hammer it all out, and highly impractical. The following year, he used a horse. Like, that's sort of a narrative is what we're going for here. But yeah, I'm pretty pleased with how we're going about it. All I've used so far are these. So you can do a bit of fun with a limited amount of tools, and just let yourself go. I thought I'd come in and do an early stream today. Oh, I know what I was going to do. So the intention with these is that I'm going to make little flags with them and paste those down in the backgrounds. I'm not going to get into that bit of basic cutting here because I have to get on and do something else. But this is what the intention is with the foil, is that I'll be putting the foil in as flags. So, and we'll be doing some ink with on top of the foil, because you got to put some designs. It just proves you don't need lots of stuff to make art. No, you really don't. You just explore, play, have fun, and it'll all come together. If it's some grand project and grand idea, you can still do it with limited materials. There's an artist that passed away recently, and he would use, let's see if I got one, this kind of a brush pen, okay, that has a long tip at the top. He'd use a much fancier brand, and he would do compositions that are 4 feet by 8 feet, and he would just stand there with this brush, and he would draw the whole of it in and work out all the details using black brush tip markers. So you can do big deals with limited amounts of things. Man, does that ever save on the stuff you got to carry around. But okay, so there we go. There's the start of our page for today. I'll get this finished and posted up. Yeah, but give that a try. Grab a black studio pen from the dollar store, and the studio inexpensive markers that they have at the dollar store, and just go to town. Have some fun. All right, gang, thanks very much for coming and hanging out. I'll be back on Monday at 2. But in the meantime, I hope everybody has a good weekend. Thanks very much for y'all coming by. I'll see you Monday. Bye for now.